I'm Marlene. Standing in the courtroom, I watched as the judge reviewed the evidence before her. The air was thick with tension, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My mother, Vera, sat across from me, her face a mask of defiance. My father, Henry, looked small and defeated. It was a moment that would change everything, but it all started with a simple box. I grew up in a small town called Millfield. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business. In our family, there were two children, my older brother, Ethan, and me. Ethan was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was the sensitive one. That's what my mother, Vera, always said. Marlene is too sensitive. She takes things too hard, she'd say, as if it were a flaw to be ashamed of. Ethan was into sports. He played basketball in high school and got a full ride scholarship to college. My mother was always bragging about him at the local church. She kept his trophies on the mantle, while my school pictures were hidden away in a drawer. When I told my parents I wanted to study art, my mother scoffed. Art won't put food on the table. You should find a practical career, she said. I applied to art school anyway and got in. But my parents didn't offer any financial support. I had to work 2 jobs to pay for my tuition. Over the 4-year course, I racked up a debt of $185,000. Despite this, I sent $150 home every month to help with the bills. My mother never once thanked me. Ethan, on the other hand, got a great job as a financial analyst after graduation. He bought a nice house, and my parents gave him $35,000 for the down payment. When my husband, Ryan, and I bought our first home a couple of years later, my mother just said, "I hope you can afford it." There was no financial help, no warm words of congratulations. I met Ryan at a local art supply store. I was looking for a new set of paints, and he was buying a canvas. We started talking, and it was like we'd known each other forever. We got married a year later. I wanted a small, intimate wedding, but my mother wanted a big, fancy affair. I stuck to my guns, and she didn't speak to me for 2 months. Ryan always said, "She'll come around. Family is family." But he didn't understand the kind of family I came from. When our daughter, Ava, was born, my mother showed up at the hospital unannounced. She walked right in, picked Ava up out of the bassinet, and said, "There's my girl." It wasn't Marlene's girl or Ryan's girl, but my girl. Ryan and I exchanged a look, but we didn't say anything. Over the next few years, my mother started to interfere in Ava's life. She bought Ava a whole closet full of frilly dresses, even though Ava preferred jeans and t-shirts. When I told Ava she couldn't have the sugary snacks my mother brought, my mother would say, "One little treat won't hurt her." She'd also tell Ava, "Mommy is just being strict. Grandma understands." Ava started to change. She stopped listening to me and would often say, "Grandma says I can do it." One day, on the way home from school, Ava asked me, "Mommy, why are you always mad at Grandma?" I was heartbroken. I realized that my mother was trying to turn Ava against me, just like she had done with me and Ethan. That night, I sat down with Ryan at the kitchen table. "She's doing to Ava what she did to me," I said. Ryan finally seemed to understand. He said he'd talk to my parents. But when he called, my mother got angry and hung up on him. My father then called back and said, "You're causing trouble in the family. Don't overreact." A few weeks later, Ava spent the night at my parents' house. When she came home the next day, she was shaking. She held a wrapped box against her chest, her eyes red and her lower lip trembling. "Grandpa said to give you this," she whispered. "He said to tell you not to overreact." I took the box and told Ava to go wash her hands. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened it. Inside were all the family photos that had me in them, but my face had been carefully cut out. There was also a letter from my mother that said, "You've chosen to distance yourself from the family. This is the end." And at the bottom of the box was a stuffed rabbit, the one I used to sleep with as a child. I picked up the rabbit and noticed that it felt heavier than it should. I cut open the seam and found a GPS tracker inside. I was shocked and angry. I immediately called the police and my best friend, Maya, who is a paralegal. Maya arrived quickly and started gathering evidence. She photographed the box, the cut-out photos, the letter, and the tracker. When the police officer, Officer Davis, arrived, he was very professional. He told me that placing a tracking device on someone's property without consent was a criminal offense. Just then, Ethan showed up. He looked haggard, holding a manila folder. "I need to talk to you before Mom finds out I'm here," he said. I let him in, and he showed us that my mother had been talking to a lawyer about getting visitation rights for Ava. She had even written a list of false accusations against me, like neglect and emotional instability. Ethan told us that he had found a notebook in my mother's drawer. It was filled with notes about Ava's daily life, all gathered through sneaky questions. He said he was coming forward because his wife, Lily, was pregnant, and he didn't want the same thing to happen to his child. We decided to file for a protective order. Over the next few days, my mother tried everything to stop us. She posted on social media, saying that I was keeping Ava from her. Pastor Tom from our church called me, saying I should respect my parents. But I was done being silent. The day of the court hearing arrived. My mother and father sat on the bench outside the courtroom, looking like they were going to a Sunday service. My mother was wearing a fancy dress and pearls. I walked past them without a word. In the courtroom, my mother's lawyer, Mr. Thompson, tried to paint her as a loving grandmother being punished for caring too much. He said I was overreacting, but I was ready. I presented the evidence one by one. The tracker, the cut-out photos, the letter, the notebook, and Ethan's statement. When my mother took the stand, she tried to justify the tracker, saying she was worried about Ava's safety. But as the evidence piled up, she started to lose her composure. She started shouting, saying that I was a bad mother and that everything she did was for Ava. My father was also called to testify. He looked incredibly uncomfortable. When asked if he knew about the tracker, he finally admitted that he didn't know, but he should have checked. He apologized to me, and it was the first time I'd seen him stand up to my mother. After reviewing the evidence, the judge, Judge Miller, ruled in my favor. She granted a permanent protective order, stating that my parents were prohibited from contacting me, Ryan, or Ava for 2 years. My mother was in shock. She started crying real tears this time. Outside the courthouse, we all stood on the steps. Ethan said he'd be okay and that he and Lily would figure things out. Maya told me I did the right thing. Ryan put his arm around me, and we went to pick up Ava from school. In the following weeks, things started to calm down. Ava asked about Grandma less and less. One day, she said, "Mommy, I'm glad you're not the sensitive one anymore." I knelt down and told her, "I never was, baby." Pastor Tom stopped calling after he saw the court ruling. My aunt sent a text saying she was sorry. Ethan and Lily had their first ultrasound, and he sent me a photo. My father sent a letter to Ryan, saying he was getting help. My mother didn't contact anyone, and I stopped trying to understand her. I changed the locks on our house and installed a camera doorbell. I bought Ava a new stuffed animal, a little bear she named Star. I learned that the people who tell you not to overreact are often the ones causing the problem. And I was finally ready to stand up for myself and my family. If this story reminds you of someone you love, share it with them. Subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.